not the ones making the noise. There is a noise that is externally, those who are studying them and those academics. I also found this thesis of history. I found this historic thesis directed by René de la Torre, which has been the person that has known this phenomenon the most and reading about it. And look at this section where he gives acknowledgments. This student says, my visits to the Mexican district, and he thanks everybody, and I'm going to start from here. He says, in respect to the Presbítero Ornelas, an illustrated person from my birthplace of Guadalajara, in which I was able to dialogue openly about my thesis. And he also helped me to think about the Catholic strategies to stop the growth of the light of the world in the west side of the city. So it is incredible to find in a thesis, to find this information in 2016, an intention so, let's say, open, decided to stop a religion in part by the Catholic Church in that space that is Guadalajara. So what happens with the mediatic situation, things that are going on, and I will turn to the academy in this part. It is because we can do a reading from the outside, but the reading from the interior of this doctrine, it tells us that they are going to grow because it is written prophetically. So they are going to arrive to many places. So where and who is worried about this, and who came up with the idea to stop this church, and why? Or why would this bother somebody? What will be the problem of their growth? Because anywhere that they arrive, they have a slogan. A better citizen, or rather, a good Christian is a better citizen. They are not those who, for example, prohibit medicine, some sort of medical intervention. On the contrary, I have a link here where I can see the beginnings or the principles that they stand by. Whether they be religious or pro-life, they consider science a gift from God. So who can this church really make somebody uncomfortable? They grow, but they also grow economically. So what needs to be, or what wants to be stopped? Just like these colonies or these cities, if you project 10, 15 years from now, when they are going to be a lot more visible because they will have cities, and they will be a lot more, and there will be many more of them. This starts to make some governments uncomfortable. Some governments and some religions, in which not only there is some sort of competition, but there is a phenomenon in the United States, and that many of those temples that belong to other churches and are now being left empty, this religion comes and buys them and adapts them and makes them adequate to fit the needs of the light of the world. So it's a religion that is all of a sudden uncomfortable for a government that, like the one of Trump, that doesn't want Mexicans, Latin Americans, and he doesn't want to see them grow and to be visible inside of his politics. It is very uncomfortable for these religions because it may seem that they are giving them more space and even leaving them or facilitating them. All these temples, it is very uncomfortable for the Mexican people. I will retract myself from saying Mexican people. It is not a problem for the Mexican people. No, it is the second religion that has the most growth compared to Catholicism. It is to say that the biggest membership, it is this of the light of the world, and it has grown, let's say, alongside with governments, because they do not subscribe themselves neither from left or right or center. No, they work with the government that they are under. They work, let's say, with the government that is guiding them. They work with the government that corresponds to each of their areas. So I believe that the actual balance, because we're going to enter a very delicate part, and each one of you needs to make your own equations, and right now we're going to have questions and we will look for possible answers. A year ago, exactly the 3rd of June, in the United States, in Los Angeles, they stopped the Apostle Nason, which is the actual director of the Light of the World. And up to this date, he's still in prison because he has charges that up to this point, they have not been able to find any proof or evidence. So we're going to see this actually and how this has been up to this day. He's still under custody, and he is in custody because there are charges that up to this point they have not been proven or evidence has been found. So we have this current situation according to the reading that we are managing. So based on this actual situation and the reading that we are doing, we will see how this has been managed. There's a mediatic situation, and we're going to handle this in all aspects, whether it be political, religious, or even from the spectacle. We have a society in which the use and abuse of the media has permitted that there's not an investigation or a follow-up many times of the things that are spoken and are investigated in a penal way. So then, we will see how this man arrives to the point where he is stopped, and who promotes this detention, and who does this detention is this fiscal, that is a fiscal from California whose name is Becerra. I pulled this from Wikipedia because it caught my attention a lot. The profile that this fiscal has, this fiscal Becerra, it turns out that in the United States, the topic of child abuse from the Catholic Church, it has been, obviously, they have been taking care of this issue, obviously from the fiscal courts of every state. And it results that the only state that had not incriminated or had not implicated, the only state that did not press charges against any Catholic priest was the state of California. A thing that is very strange because every case that there was in California left to other states to be able to press charges against this priest. So there was some sort of cover up from these elites that are in charge in the Catholic wouldn't go after this priest. So the people will go to other states and press charges against this priest that were doing all this child abuse. And it turns out that they were protecting this elite of the Catholic churches. So what he does, he mounts a digital platform where people could denounce anonymously. So let's take a look of who is this Becerra guy. In the case against the leader of the church, the Luz del Mundo, Nason Joaquin Garcia, the fiscal Becerra, he seems himself surrounded by scandals in which they beat his political interest against the media and the attacks against the Apostle Nason Joaquin. Various media outlets published his addition to the Archbishop of Los Angeles, to Jose Horacio Gomez, and to the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. He was mentioned as the honorary member of the Opus Dei. He is also accused by mediums such as Telemundo of not taking to justice hundreds of child molesters, priests from the Catholic Church during his actual charge of California, promoting actions to cover up the malpractice in his current charge of fiscal of California. He is marked as somebody who covers up and promotes actions and marked of malpractices by different media groups. He is also accused of leading a hacking group. This Becerra character is also in charge of leading a group of hackers against the United States guidelines, named by media outlets like Flash Report as a corrupt anarchist. So Fiscal Becerra sets up this platform, a digital platform in which anybody can say without any proof or give an identity or say who they are. And this is how this starts to grow, a phenomenon that is not a wave of accusations that could be proven. There is no evidence. There is no way to do follow-ups because it is about proofs that are supposedly, let's say, exposed by this fiscal. This is the time from which June till February, about 9 months, 8 months. This is the moment where there is no trial. There has no been evidence found against the Apostle Nason, but there is, let's say, a barrier to the point to not allow not even the possibility of a bail, to pay some sort of bail. And they set the highest bail that has ever been imposed in Los Angeles. And let's take in consideration that LA holds a lot of celebrities around the world. So they set a bail of $50 million, something that is not payable. $50 million, obviously an amount that the apostle said the church is not going to get this money, but the director said nobody's going to pay for this. This is not just, this is not fair. The church is totally 100% secure and know the innocence that this apostle has. And obviously the apostle Nason said not to collect none of this money. He says this is not just. The church is totally secure and convinced of the innocence and the trajectory that this apostle has had, because he's not a person that is away. The members of this church are not far away from the community. No, people know them from birth, from child. They know their trajectory. He is a person that people see him a lot, and his trajectory is well known. It's proven in many ways of his trajectory. Besides that, a lot of the investigations that are taking place him in dates and situations that is proven that he was not there. He was in another country. He was directing, let's say, some sort of sermon or a preaching. Do you see the background? That is the church of Guadalajara. That is a cathedral. That is the symbol of Guadalajara. Take a look at what's happening in front of the church. There is thousands and thousands of baptisms right in front in their footsteps. Now, it's not an answer to this, but it's a phenomenon that as they take the apostle as a captive person in the 3 months that the apostle was behind bars, there was about 40,000 baptisms just in 3 months, and in the plazas all over the world. So it wasn't the effect that they expected, that seeing the apostle behind bars, people were going to leave. But on the contrary, what people did on the inside of his church, what they did is that they surrounded him. Even though there were many cases that needed to be addressed by human rights organizations, the OU, and there was many instances or cases that needed to be reported in front of human rights organizations because people started to attack the members, and to the point where some of their temples were vandalized whenever the detention of the Apostle Nason took place, the 3rd of June. By the 10th of June, there were already 150 cases in Guadalajara of vandalism and a total of 500 all over Mexico in relation to the response that people had due to the yellow journalism that media outlets put out there for society to see. And this is how people were reacting to this. And after this, I will answer some questions. This is something I just wanted to show because it's Bello Colombia, and she shows pictures of what's going on. If anybody has not seen them and you see them around, you see their worship services, they cover their head. They got a very particular way to sing. In their worship services, they don't use the instruments. They sing a cappella. There's a place where women sit and a place where men sit. There are worship services that take part every day from 5 a.m., 9 a.m., and 6 p.m. And there is 2 bigger events that take place during Thursday and in Sunday, which is their Sunday school. And I could break down the interior of the actual worship services and stuff that they follow in a doctrine way, but I will answer now some questions. And well, that was the translation that I tried to do the best that I could, but she speaks really fast, so it's hard to stop and get everything, so I have to kind of edit the video, slow down, cut some parts, go back, listen to it again, and form a more correct way to say what she's trying to say, because it is in Spanish and her way of speaking is way too fast. So I hope that this small translation might help more than one person. And like I said, this is just something that I felt that I needed to translate, just so that at least one of my friends gets a better understanding of what I believe in. God bless you guys.